Okay. Oh, I think I'll leave the.
크리스토퍼라고 참석자가 있나요? 크리스토퍼라고 참석자가 있나요? 크리스토퍼요? 네. 뭔가요? 네. 먼저 조금 봐. 크리스토퍼는 이게 왜안 들어갈까요? 들어가 채팅을 제가 쳐야 되는데. 이게 왜 이 화면 같은 벌써 순간 이러면서
Okay, so okay. I just saw you became a co-host, which is good. Okay.
이거 한번 지금 할까요? 지금 나왔지?
I just realized I was on mute.
Yes.
By the way, the only reason I'm co-host is because I was literally first person in the Zoom session. So just FYI.
Who's talking? Are you Mark?
Yes, that's me. I'm talking.
Well, I wasn't sure. But yeah, I've left them. I gave them your name and Christine before the session, and I've explained that you would need host rights because you need to share your screen.
Cool.
So I had already, but yeah, good nonetheless. Can I share the screen already? Do you mind?
Before the presentation, I will miss people. You should.
Yeah, I've got this one.
Yes.
So I have the
Yes. Then
I have an introductory slide.
Yes, you can unlock that. We will turn off that. Or is this done?
It's not as.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
So then people know that what room they're in.
what room, what session they're in, so it should be okay. Okay. Let's see though, if I go like this. I think that that will be fine as well. Wonder why it's correcting, because it's English. Oh. Okay, 10 more minutes. So we've got 10 participants. You have let everyone in, so no one's waiting in the room. Okay. To everyone who's online, who has connected remotely, we're gonna start in roughly 9 minutes. But if you do want to, please take the time to introduce yourself in the chat or say hello and where you're joining from or whatever, whatever you'd like to share.
Need this session at supercomputing. We need to, you know what I mean? It's great to have it here. And then I guess this is my daily life. Well, I could take this for a talk. So I never thought to have a talk on this. And yeah, I had so much to say.
Well, I can imagine, because we're sort of approaching this from both a CSC, so well, we have the mini supercomputer, but also from as an organization that provides data services, and we're part of all the work that is being done around the European Open Science Cloud, which now is mostly around data. So
oh yeah, CSC is so forward thinking in this way. See, I'm like, well, comparatively, at least from what I understand, your leadership said 10 years ago, they said, okay, we've got to point to data. Not so much where I'm at.
yeah, no, I was lowering my head because it's obviously happening. There are people that are doing such great work, and we found ourselves like being part of both because not we found ourselves, but we are part of both ecosystems. So it makes sense trying to build that bridge. Oh, thank you, Mark, for that icebreaker. What is that?
Oh, I see. There's a Zoom chat and a Hoover chat.
Well, I'm assuming the Hoover chat is the one overall.
It's not specific for the session.
Okay. So I'm going to get rid of that.
So.
Hello.
Yeah, I thought
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, very nice to meet you. Thank you for joining. Yeah, we've got some serious competition in terms of the hybrid sessions. So there's one on PID strategies, and there are a couple of virtual ones also on open science graphs, and a little bit of overlapping, but also more consolidated topics. So
What's this?
there's one on research evaluation and also a BoF that is picking up.
Trying to figure out what time it is. Oh, so at home for me,
Yeah, it's
in the US, it's midnight to 3 a.m. the time zone. So that's good though. I can say whatever I want. None of my colleagues will be tuned in.
Well, we do have. I mean, it's a good. It's a good time for Europe because it's roughly
Yeah, it's a good time for Europe.
10 a.m. So
Already got their first coffee.
Yeah.
Not hungry enough for
Ready?
lunch.
Yeah. Unless you're in Finland where they have lunch at 11:30, so.
Oh, yeah.
Now all my Finnish colleagues will hear me say that.
In Germany also like 11:45,
Yeah.
start heading for lunch.
Oh, they do? I didn't know that.
I don't know, it's like really Nordic things.
Okay, so we'll wait a little bit longer.
But doesn't everybody eat late? Like 8 p.m.? Well, sorry, you would call it 20?
The
No?
place that I live, yes, I live in Spain, and
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. in Spain
at 8, at 7:30 you don't find anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I moved recently from Germany to Spain, and it's insane. Like at 7:30, you're so hungry. There is nothing open. It's like, how even possible?
Yeah, I remember I was in France once. We were there for a wedding. We tried to get dinner at 7 because we had some event. And the people said, what do you want to eat? They would make us something like it was easy, you know? And they took pity on it. Yeah.
Really interesting, but from certain altitude, like, and totally different.
Oh, hi, Hillary. No, not at all. On the contrary. Yes, please. Well, actually, I was looking at the participants and we had 10 and we lost one in the meantime, so that's not a good sign. But as I was saying, we've got very good competition. I know that there are a few good sessions that are at the same time, so yeah.
I'd be happy to just say what I have to say to one other person and see if it resonates.
Yeah,
It's been,
I fully agree.
yeah, rattling around in my head so long. Plus the recording, people watch the recordings later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hillary, were you supposed to be the queen this morning?
Not at all.
No. I didn't know how Bridget got that gig.
So they asked for 2 volunteers from the organizing committee. And actually, as it happened, Simon wasn't on the call and that was, and I was like, oh, I am speaking, so I'm sorry I can't. And I said, Bridget, would you like to? And Bridget has a phobia about costumes. You know? So she's like, and I was like, okay, yeah. So then it was like, okay, well, we'll find out afterwards. So we all left the meeting and Daddy wrote again on the committee and said, so who the volunteers? And someone said, I'll do it. And then, what's her name said, and then Bridget said, well, if no one else volunteers, I'll do it. And that was really funny. So it's like, yeah, someone is definitely not going to volunteer there.
I thought Simon was a trooper.
Yes, there are some very good pictures on Twitter.
Oh, he decided he was going to go full on.
Yeah, he looked like
He
he
committed.
enjoyed it.
But they
very
had
much.
to, because I was like, Bridget, you weren't smiling at the end. She's like, they told me to be arrogant. I was like, okay.
Oh.
Well, he played that part well.
She was very serious.
Okay, and I'm sorry if you did not, those of you virtually did not see this, but Simon dressed up as a traditional Korean king, and Bridget, who, if you've been part of RDA governance at all, you know Bridget. She helped with Hillary keep things going, but she was the queen. It must be seen on recording if you've not seen it. That was really.
yes.
I just think, actually, I think in the beginning,
Oh, yeah. I was sitting next to the head of the Korean library, and Simon had been right here, and then they kind of, and so she looked at me, she said, oh, is it, and pointed at a seat, like, it's him.
Well, actually, I saw Bridget and I was like, oh my God, that's Bridget. And Natalie next to me, she's like, yeah, And Simon. Simon, I didn't see Simon. I was like so taken up by how serious Bridget looked. So I'm like, okay. Okay,
That needs
so
to be a tradition.
Yes.
You mean that each time that somebody is randomly picked up and going to be.
So I don't know, Salzburg, if it in Lederhosen, or what would be, no, that's Austria, sorry, not Germany. There's must be something though. for
I'm
Salzburg.
sure there is. Yodeling. Isn't it yodeling?
I don't know, but we've got a year to find out.
Well, a year and a half, actually.
That's a big feeling.
Okay. So we'll wait just another minute to see if anyone from the meeting rooms will join, and then we can start. Thank you all for the patience, those of you that have connected before the top of the hour. Okay. Cool. To do that. Do we have any more waiting room participants? No. Okay. Yes. Let's wait a couple more minutes. Well, yeah, it was fun. I'm reading the chat, so for those of you that. So please feel free to say hello in the chat. We're still waiting for people to join, just a couple more minutes and then we'll start.
Oh, Jack is there. Not live.
What does that mean?
But he's in the conference center, but I saw him on the screen a minute ago.
Oh, okay. Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we can close the door and
Start. There.
it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it.
No, it's
Okay.
fine.
Or feel free to use it too. I like, I'm always reading out.
Okay. So I think we can start. We have roughly 13 participants. A few of us actually are connected also online to be able to share the screen and see a little bit of the chat. So thank you everyone for joining this this hybrid session. So we have a few people actually in the room, and we have others connected remotely. So this BoF on leveraging the data community strength and the high performance computing opportunities was born actually at the 18th plenary. So the previous plenary, where we had like a full-blown plenary session on highlights from different regions on ongoing work, and we thought that it would be interesting to further explore the topic and understand what are the things that well, that the gaps that should be addressed, and if RDA can help on this. Sorry, let me see if I can move to the next slide. Yeah, I know. I didn't want to because I was afraid that it might blow up. But now it should be okay. I'll try to move in a more organized way. So HPC data and data infrastructures. This was the topic that we discussed in the previous plenary session and for the meeting today. So we would like to highlight and identify some of the ongoing work that relates to either technical or social challenges in terms of the wider integration and interoperability between the two environments. We would like to showcase some of the initiatives and the various activities that are focused on increasing the access to HPC resources in contexts like research commons or other similar initiatives at national and regional levels. We hopefully can shortlist some of the key challenges and understand if there's interest in our to set up a group under RDA to address some of these identified challenges. So we've outlined some questions for today. So what are the gaps that should be bridged? Are these mostly technical or social? A few examples of these. What are the initiatives that are ongoing in various countries? What would be the priorities areas to address, and how can RDA help in a broader, well, as part of a global approach to this issue? I'm Timea Biro. I didn't introduce myself at the beginning. I work for CSC and EOSC Future. I have two hats in this sort of context. We have Christine Kirkpatrick from the San Diego Supercomputing Center. She's going to talk a little bit about the US landscape. And we have Mark Gray online, who's going to speak more about the Australian landscape. So a few objectives for today, but also for the longer term. So why are we here? It's a conversation about raising awareness around the high performance computing and how to include that better in scientific workflows. It's also about understanding ways to further develop, to further push the development and prototyping of HPC resources and tools that the data community can explore and leverage. And we were thinking about such technologies like the digital twins that are popping up all over the place. Actually, there's also a session, I think, on digital twins for health that is ongoing at the same time. We ourselves, CSC, are involved in a few activities related to that, and also how this topic fits in the research common initiatives environment. And I'm giving the example of the EOSC in Europe, who's looking at creating fair web of data and services. And obviously that depends on researchers being able to access diverse computing resources. So these were the objectives for today, and kind of like a very, I don't know, informal or very relaxed agenda that we have. But please, I've reached out to some people who would also be available to maybe talk about specific disciplinary or domain contexts that would be relevant for the topic. So if you have anything to add at any point in time, please feel free to add a note to the chat or speak up, because yeah, we would be very curious to understand the various perspectives. So we're very much in a landscape setting or landscape understanding position, and maybe some problem definition phase for any work around this. So it is a BoF, so it's important to have a discussion to understand what are the issues, and if there's potential to set up a group or something more, a more elaborate activity under RDA. So I'll try to start with a little bit of the European context. And as I mentioned, in this situation, I'm wearing two hats. So on the one side, I'm wearing my CSC hat. So CSC is the IT Center for Science in Finland. It's also the house of Lumi, so the third fastest supercomputer in the world, and the third greenest, but it is the fastest in Europe. So we're quite, it's an extraordinary scientific tool that we're very much aiming towards, well, making a very good use of it. We're involved with that under various projects that are both data and computing intensive. So it's an interesting environment and it's an interesting connection to make. I'm also wearing my EOSC Future hat. EOSC Future is a project that aims to sort of drive the implementation of the European Open Science Cloud. And it's in this phase, it aims at well, building a user-friendly environment for data discovery, data storage, also very diverse computing services, complex workflows, and everything that comes with doing science, you know, in the proper way. I'll admit who I saw that there was someone in the waiting room. Okay, so putting these two together, so EOSC and HPC on the one side makes a lot of sense. So for us, it is natural scale out for EOSC trying to connect with the HPC environment, and that means that there are technical choices that need to align, and also architectures. So from a very technical point of view, but also in terms of the strategy, the two sort of representatives of these environments have highlighted the importance of collaborating. So we have EuroHPC on the one side, and we have the EOSC and the EOSC Association and EOSC Future on the other one. And it is about understanding the key drivers for open science and how well the HPC side can support with that, understanding the requirements that will come from the research community, and overall supporting the work around the key and grand challenges in terms of science, which we know are very much data and also computing dependent. We also feel that, well, organizations like CSC that are HPC and infrastructure and data service providers are in this unique position between these two environments, so have a footing in both and can help with this alignment. So under EOSC Future and Phoenix, under EOSC Future, there's already a very advanced activity around Phoenix and the EOSC Esri Science clusters. So these are various domain clusters that work together with EOSC Future for the implementation of the European Open Science Cloud. And there are activities around pushing forward for a federated access, better understanding, and a better aligned resource allocation policies, and also around facilitating the data movement between the two environments. There are a series of projects that support EOSC Future in this, and I'm going to just talk a little bit about the work that they're doing. But in addition to that, there are also on the side of EuroHPC a few centers, disciplinary centers of excellence that are helping again from both sides on creating this connection. So I mentioned that one of the ways that the EOSC on the one side with the data focus and HPC, EuroHPC and HPC sides on the other are connected is through an initial bridge that is being done with the Phoenix initiative. So it's around federating the AAI and also bridging something called in the case of one of the science clusters, the ESCAPE, bridging the enabling data transfer between the two environments, and helping move the data from one environment to another. Phoenix is overall working on a harmonization and a federation of the infrastructure services, and it aims to support different scientific and engineering domains to have access to the diverse infrastructure services for their collaborative research activities. So this would be one of the sort of projects that we mentioned that can provide this connection between the two environments. There are other projects that are mostly focused on data services and bridging the gap with the HPC, and DICE is one of those projects. We also have a nice example of personalized medicine scientific center of excellence that has implemented actually the connection and has made this bridge between the data requirements and also in an HPC environment, and that's CombBiomed. And there are also 2 additional projects that are actually working on the federation, integration, and interoperability between HPC environments and the EOSC. And as you can see from the short overview that I'm showing now, some are focused on supporting the integration and interoperability of data catalogs. Other are through various pilot use cases working on the access federation, the application federation, data, and also operations. So I've just tried to give you a very, very quick overview of the various projects that support the connections between these 2 environments, while at the same time, based on their focuses, trying to highlight a little bit what are the gaps that we foresee, and maybe some of these are also matched in the US landscape or in the Australian one. So maybe there are other ones that come from other activities. So we would be very much interested to learn a little bit more about, well, what are different ways of bringing these two environments together. So I will stop sharing now. I'll now stop here and pass on to Christine Kirkpatrick. So she's from the San Diego Supercomputing Center, and actually when I've contacted her about the session, she said that she's been working on this for her whole life. So it's an excellent match. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking about this. I thought we couldn't talk about this, and so I was very excited that there was a BoF about it. The shared Google Docs is what's your interest, and I just said, hold my beer, I'm going to tell you. But yes, so I'm someone who usually speaks with slides, and this one, I didn't need that. I had so much to say. I thought, you know what, I could take the whole 90 minutes for myself, but I distilled it to a couple key points that I want to share, not because I'm the only one to have thought of them, but I can't wait to hear if they resonate with others and see where we take this. So as Tamia said, I'm from the San Diego Supercomputer Center, and we do have a history of being data centric, which all of my colleagues are asleep. So I'm going to give you the real scoop, but we do have a history. Of course, it's where iRods came from, which was an early and I think popular data management platform. And then of course, Fran Berman was a director at SDSC, and she's one of the founders of RDA. So, and then the previous director, who was my boss for 9 years, Mike Norman, he was very supportive. And my current boss, well, I don't know if he knows where I am, but I am here. And so all this to say, if I say anything negative, I do want to acknowledge that there are some really, there's some strong support at SDSC, but I think what I'm guessing is similar for others that work at HPC centers or centers that started out as advanced computing centers that were computationally heavy, is that the funding does not necessarily follow the data projects. Now, CSC, is my understanding that is the case, that the funding, shows how serious they are on the topic. But other places that I've worked or that I'm close with people, not the case. And one of the things that you see is that even if you have strong leadership support, that doesn't mean that the people in the middle managers, have support. And some of those people are the ones that you actually need to influence for these things to come together. And that's where the opportunity is. So the first point I'd like to make is that there's inherently a culture clash between HPC people and data people. And I suppose someone could be equally both, but I haven't met one. Usually you identify with one or the other. And I think part of the reason is that for HPC, it's inherently competitive, right? you have the top 500, which not everyone buys into, but still, it's all about benchmarking who's the fastest, right? And I loved hearing refer to Lumi as the third greenest. I think that's the thing to really brag about. You also have the users. They compete for time, and there's not enough cycles on any of the systems. So it's just a different vibe, because data people, it's like we recognize that we have to work together, that the more data you have, the more sharing you have should lead to good things. And one of the most common terms we use is interoperability. You know, we talk about collaboration. So something unique occurred for me. I've been at SDSC, I think, since 2012. It's hard to remember that far back these days. And I remember definitely feeling kind of like an odd duck. This was in 2012 was when we were just starting to use the term data science. And that's when I started to realize I'm a data person. There was no, there weren't data science institutes yet. And so at advanced computing centers, where people are used to doing the thing that, I don't know, is at the bleeding edge, I was allowed to explore the space. In 2015, we had the chance to work on a project called the US National Data Service. And this was primarily a partnership between NCSA, which is in Illinois, and was the first supercomputer center in the US, and SDSC. And I remember at the time, my colleagues saying, "Why are you working with them? Aren't they our competitors?" I was like, "Not with data. We're going to work together." And so I think that is borne out as a complete success, even if you just look at the grants that we've been able to get as a team, not NDS, but the team that was formed around that through the multiple computing centers. I even have one called the Open Storage Network, which is principally about sharing data. And that has 6 advanced computing centers working together, not for big money, just working collaboratively. But first point again, HPC and data people can be odd partners. I do think that over the next few years, HPC people will finally let some of the data people into the room. Last year at NeurIPS, which is one of the premier AI conferences, they had their first data-centric AI panel. And I think even the definition of the term data-centric AI has been a pivotal thing for our fields. What it acknowledges is that algorithms can only do so much to improve a model. That sometimes a model doesn't perform well because the data that you're feeding it is not what is needed. So for example, maybe you need more low exposure images to train your model to do better identification. Or maybe you need to have multiple languages if you're doing some kind of natural language processing. So I'm hoping that this leads to more and more collaborations. And perhaps if we have topics around this data-centric AI, this would be a natural place to work together. I think HPC people, at least in the US, are starting to see that they can gain an advantage by talking about AI readiness, and they can add data people to help with that. I mean, AI readiness, I think, is really a synonym, not a perfect synonym, but in some ways it's so much about fair and machine readability. It's all about giving context to the data. You know, classification is really just applying vocabulary. And these are things we know how to do as data people. HPC people have been using some of these things, but it's not the raison d'etre, right? And so we should be, I think, really beating the drum of AI readiness. Fourth, and this is a place that I found it possible to collaborate with what I'd call the HPC people at my center, is that data people know about the platforms, Dataverse or Clouder from NCSA. We know how to incorporate some of the FAIR tools, like using Stanford CDAR to enforce metadata standards via templates. I've worked with HPC people who are even they're very interested in FAIR. And then I find them creating new ontologies. It's like, you need to wrap them on the knuckles. Like, don't start a new ontology unless you're sure that it's brand new. So these are some of the things that we can work on together. Okay, another thing that I think, and this is something I've been working on, is trying to make HPC people see performance data and job logs as a type of computer science data that can be mined for insights. So of course, the person who schedules the HPC system knows so much about what works, what doesn't, and they're great at tuning things. But I still believe in the power of mining data to find out things you didn't know. And so I think more and more we need to apply research data management techniques, including robust vocabularies, to producing that computer science data. And here's the reason why, and I'm winding down with my diatribe now. See why I said I thought you'd never ask, because I've been waiting to say this. The reason to analyze what I call computer science data, or especially job logs with HPC, is we really have to improve efficiency. It takes way too much time to clean the data and to find the data. And then if you had to, rerun everything or wait days, it's just too much. But also the energy is too costly. So in my portfolio at SDSC, I'm over the data center. We're currently consuming 3.5 megawatts of power. That's just our steady state, although that's probably maybe not too bad compared to Lumi, but we don't have a supercomputer as big as that. My house only uses 5 kilowatts, so 3.5 megawatts is some pretty serious consumption. I think that we need to use data to inform and make better decisions about how we speed up computation. It can't just be, give me as many cores as you can, I'm going to run them as hot and as fast as I can, and the cost be damned. I work with the group called the Machine Learning Commons, which is at mlcommons.org. It's inherently a benchmarking group, super cool groups of people, many great working groups, really recommend it. All of their, what I would call data, is on GitHub. And so I converted some of that into data sets that I could analyze. And in one of their training benchmarks, I found that the fastest time used 3 times the energy, and it got it in 30% of the time. But do you really need to use 3 times the energy to save 2 minutes? I don't think so. Now, if missiles are coming into your country, maybe that's probably pretty important. But we don't do any of that kind of computing at SDSC. I don't think many of you do either. Even if it was sequencing, we actually at SDSC, we are proud to partner with our local children's hospital. And they do run sequencing on some of the newborns or other children that have genetic diseases. I think even they would be okay with 2 more minutes, if it was saving power. So I think we really need to realign our values and include greening things, which comes back to efficiency, which comes back to having good data about what we're doing. Now, to Maya's actual questions, thank you for the platform to spout off on things I spend a lot of time thinking about. Can RDA help? RDA has been helping. RDA has had the Fair for ML group, which I love being part of, and having the plenaries, even the virtual plenaries, has given us a place to find each other, because otherwise I would not know how to find them. I wouldn't have known about Fair for HEP, high energy physics, which is, I think, takes part in the Fair for ML. I would say, based on maybe what we were talking about at the start, that it would be really fun to try this BoF out at supercomputing and then draw some of those people back to RDA and see if we can get them even just to attend. I know some of the people that come to Fair for ML, that's one of the only sessions they come to at RDA, to be with the other HPC people, as it were. Last couple points, if I'm okay on time. Okay. You did ask what's the situation in the US. So we are very lucky. The National Science Foundation, and I should say our supercomputing center is primarily funded by the National Science Foundation. There are, of course, many that are funded by the Department of Energy. We give our cycles through a program that used to be called Exceed, and is now, the program is called Access. We had always hoped at this changeover that it would be the chance to include data. Unfortunately, it does not look like that occurred.
because they only gave about half the funding as last time. But the people that are that do that program, I know are interested in data. They were some of the people that were involved in the US National Data Service. So we'll see how that goes. I think beyond trying to bring HPC and data together, in the US, it's very difficult because we're fractured. So you have the National Science Foundation community, you have the National Institutes of Health community, and you have the DOE. And the researchers that are funded in these different streams don't often come together. And so that is something that we've been trying to do through our Go for US office, which is a very lightweight thing that's hosted at SDSC. And actually that's our mechanism for being an RDA organizational member. That's the budget we get from SDSC, that the little bit that comes back to RDA is membership. So we've been trying really hard to bring the DOE, NIH, and NSF communities together, and just to understand their priorities. Tamea also asked if there were examples of initiatives that had been working well. I don't mean to be self-interested, but one I'm working on, I think is a good example, partly because I feel like too often HPC is just for the people that know acronyms or have the big grants. And I think everyone should have access to the computing they need. Too many people size down what they're trying to do because it's like, well, I can do it on my laptop this way. So I'm PI of a program, a coordination office over the EarthCube initiative, which is NSF's $85 million portfolio for geosciences and cyber infrastructure. And this is one of those outgrowths of partnering with NCSA and having two supercomputing centers who are with people who are data-centric working together. What we've been able to do is we've been able to work with the National Science Foundation and try and translate some of the programs for the community, especially geoscientists who might not know all the terms, but actually could use some of the computing resources. So there's a new program that's come out that's called PATH, and it's basically a way for anyone who does high throughput computing, which can be done on cloud too as well, to get free cycles via the Open Science Grid. And so one of the things we're working on is translating this into something where someone who's a geoscientist could say, oh, I actually do HTC, I just didn't know it was called that. Another example is we have a program called Cloud Bank. NSF is funded, which is also at SDSC. And this is a brokering for commercial cloud credits. And so the EarthCube office is working on how to message this out to geoscientists so that it breaks down the barriers and also emboldens people that it's something that is possible they could use without too much trouble. We've also done little things like in our EarthCube newsletter once a month, and especially if there's a story that includes jargon, we have something we call CI, cyber infrastructure jargon, and we will define some of these terms. We also, on the other side, define some of the geoscience specific terms so that HPC or CI people that are on our newsletter will start to see some crossover and being able to understand what the other is talking about. And the last thing that we did is the EarthCube office is really unique in that it doesn't just do science engagement or communication or all those things that you would normally have in a coordination office. We also have a technical team. And so they're experts on research data management. So we have about, I think 36 data repositories that have joined in something called the Council of Data Facilities. And this tech team is available for all of those data repositories if they're trying to get their metadata in a schema.org compliant format, or to use the geoscience extension science on schema. We have many other programs that we use to help them, but it's unique in that we can go a little further than just sending them a link. And so maybe I'll close there. And thank you so much for asking me to be part of this session, Tamea.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. So without further ado, Mark, do you want to pick that up?
Absolutely. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Sorry, yes, we can hear you very well.
Great. Thank you. I should just start. In Australia, we always acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet. And so I want to let you know that I'm acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land that I'm presenting from, which is the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. And I'd like to acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the city, the region, and our nation. So thanks very much. Also, I'm just going to, I guess, give you an unordered set of thoughts just to kind of carry on the conversation. And sometimes people say that, and what they really mean is they've got a 10-page, a 10-slide PowerPoint organized. But I really do mean I'm going to give you a set of unordered thoughts that kind of carry on some of the things that Christine and yourself have mentioned. The first is just to, I guess, give a quick overview of the Australian situation. And I see actually some of my Australian colleagues here. Hello, Leslie. Listen to this talk. Australia is really kind of led in this space by 3 organisations. I think the NCI, the National Computational Infrastructure in Canberra, Pawsey Supercomputing Research Centre here in Perth, and the Australian Research Data Commons, which provides a kind of complementary set of kind of really data-focused infrastructure in Australia. NCI and Pawsey are very much focused on the HPC end of that infrastructure, but also support cloud and data storage and other services as well. In the Australian Research Data Commons, it's very much focused on, I guess, kind of fair data integration and cloud computing, and supporting kind of science developmental projects in the kind of portal space and platform space across Australia. The way that works in practice is it's a little bit messy, honestly, but together we kind of collaborate to ensure that projects that are supported across Australia. In practice, the different organisations have kind of quite different focuses, and I know most about Pawsey, being from there. So by way of a personal introduction, my name is Mark Gray. I'm the head of scientific platforms at Pawsey. And when I describe that to people, I describe it as meaning that I'm in charge of everything with a blinky light in the building. So I'm really the system administrator kind of manager here in the center. But oddly enough, given Christine's talk about data and HPC, my background is actually on the data end of HPC, and working in data storage and formats and ontologies is actually my background, and I've kind of switched over to the HPC side of the business, and now managing the larger infrastructure. But part of the reason for that shift, and this carries on from something Christine was talking about in terms of the HPC and data and those two sides of the business kind of getting together, is we really have an acknowledgement that the future for the HPC as we see it is one that is dominated by data services, and that it's really in some ways the data part of this whole story that's where the really big challenges exist. So from my point of view, when it comes to, I guess the construction of large-scale compute infrastructure for high-performance computing, of course, there are different technologies for that, but broadly speaking, we have a general agreement on what those look like. There's a few different computers in the world, the Fugaku and the Lumis and the frontiers of the world, but not honestly a lot of diversity beyond those things until you get down into the relatively small systems. But on the storage side, there's huge amounts of diversity and enormous problems, and that's kind of what we are trying to deal with. And part of the motivation at Pawsey for that is a project called Square Kilometre Array, which we are kind of at the front edge of in terms of coming up with solutions. And that is a project that is very much going to be dominated by the problems of data distribution, data sharing, and interoperability in a project that's, quite possibly ultimately going to have, maybe 15 or 20 international collaborating countries working together to run the world's largest radio telescope. And here at Pawsey, we're likely to be on the front foot of running the infrastructure that provides the core part of the storage and transmission infrastructure for half of that telescope, which is the SKA low, the low frequency antenna part of the SKA. What that means in practice is we some point need a system here that can push through about 200 petabytes of data a year, or maybe 300 petabytes of data a year, and distribute that to the 15 countries that actually make up the various partners of that project. So it's complicated, and there's a lot of work to do, especially around things like coming up with agreements on data formats and the ways that we transmit data, but also technologies at the lower end for the way that we actually kind of fund that. Christine talked about the efficiency of HPC and getting that from the data. One of my big motivations is actually cost efficiency for storage, and especially cost effectiveness for the building of storage systems, which are the kind of the bedrock, of course, for all of our data shenanigans. And whereas when we come to compute and thinking about ways to do compute at scale, there are a few choices that we can make. In storage, there are many choices that we can make, and all come with very significant, I guess, kind of competing kind of offsets in terms of the quality and the capability of the kind of infrastructure we might build and what that means for users. So that is my set of unordered thoughts really around kind of what we're doing in Australia right now and what some of our challenges are. The NCI in Canberra, a lot of their focus is around earth science and geoscience, where a lot of our focus is around radar astronomy, and that's really just part of just the Australian makeup of infrastructures and how we support our kind of communities. But it's also, I think, part of the kind of issues that we're facing. One of the questions posed here for today is the gaps to bridge between data and HPC, and are they technical or social? I think they're technical and cultural rather than social, in the sense that where we're making, I guess, kind of successful construction of that whole data to compute infrastructure for researchers, we're doing it really in Australia anyway, successfully on a domain by domain basis. We're not doing it in a way that really necessarily scales out to a wider set of domains. And I think that at the moment, at least from my vantage point, the area that's getting the most kind of attention at the moment is bioinformatics, one where we're trying to really help a community of scientists get access to the HPC infrastructure because they need it, but they come with a lot of data challenges, but they also come with, in some ways, a more mature kind of approach to data than that might exist on some of our traditional compute kind of research customers. At the same time, they have a less mature ability to actually use the compute infrastructure, and so we're both learning from that community at the same, or hopefully more or less at the same rate that they are learning from us in terms of how to both access the infrastructure, but also make it fit for purpose at a data end. And the data end is not just about the sharing of data, but it's also about the sharing of workflows and making that whole kind of data life cycle a shareable and reusable thing. And on the and that story is also, I think, being played out in some other communities, but not all. And so there's I think there's an opportunity there to find the kind of common interest or common set of requirements across those things. However, one of the challenges, of course, is that different communities have their own different specific kind of requirements, their own different expectations, and that's that cultural thing that's quite hard to merge when you've got very different cultural organizations, and you're trying to find a kind of a common thread between those things. It becomes a deployable technology at our end, and then there's the technology part. The technology part is really kind of complicated. So the priority areas being addressed, at least in Australia, between the National Computational Infrastructure and PAWSI, very much focused at the broader science community, but in a developmental sense right now, a lot of our interest is in trying to build up the access for bioinformatics. and in the future, you know, things like medical science and various kind of computational medical sciences are probably next on our kind of agenda. Although I'm speaking mostly for myself there, and not so much necessarily as a larger kind of thing. I think maybe the other centers might disagree with me on that, and that's a point of discussion. So I'm going to stop right there because I did promise a set of unordered thoughts, and I hope that's what you got. Back to the I guess the general BoF, and you know, happy to have a chat.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark, for that. I think there are many connections that can be established. I would like to give though the chance for the people that have connected remotely to maybe speak up. I mean, there are some messages in the chat. But I saw also that there are a few people that have added to the table that Hillary kindly, I think, set up for us. So under the column of your interest in the topic, there are quite some very interesting thoughts. I don't know. Would anyone like to speak to that? Leslie, I see you've added something. Lars as well. Please feel free to unmute. I think you can. They can unmute. Okay. Just making sure.
Yes, it's Leslie here. I'm happy to say something.
Yes.
To you make your slides available.
Yes. Yes.
I guess my interest is exactly, I think, something both you and Christine touched on, is that people are comfortable in what they're doing on their, what are called bonsai infrastructures, and that they subsample and do all sorts of crazy things to the data to fit the infrastructures they have access to. And part of the reason why they don't go to the HPC is because it's too hard. But if you can get them to move, it also means that we've done some experiments at NCI where the resolution at which you can access the data is far higher, but it's just we can't get the, what do you call, the to get people to take some time off to reading their papers out using data and infrastructures they're comfortable with. And so, yeah, it's a social issue. But the challenge, you know, I think it's great that you're starting this group up. And I guess that's just my issue, is that getting people to release the less processed forms of their data. And one of the things we say in the geosciences is, you know, today's noise is tomorrow's signal. But if you don't put it on a proper platform where we can look at the raw data at full resolution, we can't take advantage of HPC. And so we just go round and round in circles. That's it from me. And don't forget, we'd love to see your slides tomorrow.
Tamara, I think you're on mute.
They see me because I. Okay, so should I?
You're still on mute.
Okay, so
Oh, there you are.
so we've sorted out which computer needs to mute and unmute. So problem solved. Okay, so I'll stop. I don't know what I was saying before. Oh, actually, I know what I was saying, but I'll stop there. I see that there are other contributions to the table. I don't know if anyone would like to speak up. Maybe Lars, I saw that you've added both to the table as well as in the chat some points. So please feel free to unmute if you want to further elaborate on those. Oh, I don't see any movement from Lars. Maybe, yeah. Okay, so I'll just then say add to that point. So he's saying that his interest in the topic connects to applying the new visiting paradigm in data-driven science, especially with regard to sensitive data and federated computing, machine learning, AI, especially in regard to sensitive data. Then we have Kenjiro. Would you like to speak up to the point? If not, I'll stop. I don't want to put anyone in the spotlight. I was just wondering if the others would like to contribute to the conversation also remotely. If not,
sorry, I didn't put anything, so please go ahead.
So let's then try to go back a little bit on the topics that we have outlined. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I'd love that.
So this has been a little bit like therapy for me to be able to talk about these two parts of my life that I usually keep very separate, being at a supercomputing center, but being a data person. I think it would be phenomenal if this topic resonates with those others. I mean, you haven't left the Zoom, so I assume that, and you haven't left the room. So I'm assuming there's something that is of interest. It would be nice if we could continue the conversation, and maybe what we can do is we can, if nothing else, maybe develop a shared idea of what an HPC data person could be, so that you don't have to be one or the other. Maybe it's a new type of persona that, and I can work on shedding my baggage that you have to be one or the other. But I've really enjoyed reading the comments and talking about this. So I hope we can continue this on. I also said in the chat that I don't know that I could lead it, but if someone is sure they're going to go to supercomputing or is going to attend virtually, we have another week or maybe a little bit more to put in a BoF request. And the virtual attendance is not expensive, if I remember, or it's, I think,
Yes.
less than $200 at the most.
And I am happy to support you on that and also follow up with the people that have joined in, and possibly, I mean, if we can still also consider maybe sending out a couple of messages to the wider RDA audience. So even if they haven't been present to not taking part in the session, potentially we can well, send out a few messages to others. And I think that can also constitute maybe a good basis for us to kind of try to define the concept of what we're trying to do with this group. If it's a question about redefining roles, as you say, I think that there's a lot of good work that is being done at technical level. So possibly where we're lacking more is the social, or as Mark said, the cultural part of the problem, and maybe we can look further into that.
I also wonder what the competencies are that are needed by people that you would say are the core SC crowd. What do they need to know about data so that I hear this all the time. I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about any of the tools that you use. And what is it, just a 2-hour session so that they could learn a few of the words and realize it's not impossible I mean, it's pretty hard to run a supercomputer. It's pretty hard, especially, you know, going back to when things were, I don't know, things have gotten better, I should say, but it takes a lot of skill to be able to do these things. So I would think that they can cross over and learn, but I'm guessing they wouldn't want a complete introduction to data like we would give to someone who was just trying to get a technical role.
And I mean, I would assume that things like workflows and maybe making those workflows fair, or bringing the fair to the HPC way of working could also be a good starting point.
Yeah, that'd be something
I
maybe
mean,
to
we
talk.
know that the principles of it are kind of, everyone's aiming towards the same thing, but as you mentioned before, a lot of the things that have been developed within the data community are not known within the HPC
Right.
one, and vice versa, because there needs to be awareness within the awareness raising also to be done in the data community about everything that the HPC has to bring, because it's a new level of computing, and the problems that data is stressing on bigger and bigger, and there's more need to that. And also to add to the dimension of the efficiency that needs to be done in a smart way that also considers the social and green aspects.
Yeah, and if I can be honest, the reason I'm not putting my hand up to be the de facto lead on the BoF presentation is I don't always go to SC. It's a place where I can find, I mean, I could be busy all day, the entire week of the conference with good discussions and people I like to see, especially international colleagues where, you know, that I can meet up with, but it's a tough venue for me because it's so much about how many cores do you have? How fast are you clocking them? And it's like, I don't know. I just can't. And I thought it was only me, but I've actually talked to lots of people who said that they have a similar feeling, like it's too much about maybe an old paradigm of how big is your system, but maybe we can try and change what I wasn't trying to say anything. I wasn't trying to say anything tongue in cheek, but yeah. But I think, you know, if it would be nice to have there must be a lot of like-minded people. And if we could bring them back to RDA and have some more co-development of services and training. Also, I think they would be delighted at the like, I never miss an RDA plenary. And I think a lot of my colleagues would be surprised how much they'd enjoy it, even though we don't talk about cores here.
Yeah, but it's interesting because at least in Europe, well, no, not just in Europe. When RDA was, I don't know if people online can hear me. Can they hear me?
You might want to come to the podium.
No, that's no.
They can hear me.
We'll try to.
But when RDA was sort of conceived in the funders and other players' minds, many of the, in fact, if not all of the organizations or that were involved were data centers or bordering on the supercomputing sector and infrastructures in some way. And there was a little tension in the beginning because RDA has been a place that has attracted many, you know, the library and the traditionally not computer scientists, if you like. And I did say this at the plenary in Helsinki, that I think we managed to do well with many other, how would you say, communities in a lot of ways. But somewhere along the road, we lost our HPC, if you like, that in some way. And I think it is a really important thing to carry on. Whether that's carried on by the HPC computing or in RDA or by both, who cares? But I think it's a missed opportunity for, you know, both sides if we don't. And so I really like to see that trial, if possible, of see if the BoF generates support in supercomputing. I suppose you might need to understand, is this an interest group? It sounds to me like an interest group. Or are you thinking of a working, like more of a
For the RDA one.
yes, if you want to carry it on, it's more of a discussion thing for the
At
moment.
least until
A forum.
at least until some very specific problems are identified. I mean, as an interest group, there can still be very valuable outputs.
Yeah, I mean, the things you mentioned up until now, profiling or, you know, they're all very important outputs
I think so.
that an interest group can produce. Oh, one other hand up.
Yeah, Stefan has his hand up.
Stefan.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. we
Okay,
can.
perfect. Yeah, I'm from Leibniz Supercomputing Center in Germany. And I mean, we have the experience that we are launching quite a lot of efforts in this direction right now to get HPC data fair. But actually, the ones more interested are probably the users, yeah. Then, like as compared to the infrastructure providers and so on that you meet at the SC, they're with very technical thinking, and then they have maybe a couple of persons like me that care about the data. But the users, they get the requirements from the funding agencies. So I think users in such an interest group and so on are also very important and probably give you a bit of a more positive image of that. HPC is actually getting interested in the topic, yeah.
Certain that they are, because there are a few projects that are bringing the two together. So like think about Destination Earth, for example, which is part of the Green Deal, which is developing digital replicas of the Earth, and it will have a service platform, and it will have these digital twins, but also a data lake. So this is one area where the computing will be mostly high performance computing, and the data will be, there will be a data lake that will have to be fair, hopefully, in many ways. So I don't know. I know that there was a paper at the ISC in Hamburg on Fair for HPC. I don't know if you were part of that submission, Stefan.
No, actually not, but well, nice.
Yeah. And I know that I saw that there's a recent paper on Fair for digital twins that I think, Berend is one of the authors. So those are also very interesting. I think they're suggesting an approach around, fair digital objects for HPC. So there's ongoing work that is popping up here and there. Hopefully we can bridge some of that. Lars, I understand that you've had some problems, but now you've solved them? No? Okay. Oh, we'll leave it at that. Please speak up if you do want to. Okay. Paula, you as well, you've added a few points to the chat. Would you like to say anything? No. You're in the comfort of your homes, not wearing any masks, so you're far better than we are. Okay, then. Just what's in the chat. Okay, thank you very much, though. Any contribution is very welcome. Okay, so I think that we have a few actions identified. So a few things that, oh, thank you very much, Hilary. So yeah, I just noticed your ideas for the next step added to the notes, which is very good.
The summary because all of this will be summarized in the webinars after the event.
Yes. Okay.
But no, also to try and see is there some value in doing something further?
Yeah, we think there is, or especially, well, there is on my side for things that are related to EOSC. My short overview was very much focused on that, because that's one of the areas that actually one of the contexts where HPC seems to be brought together very well, or at least there are consistent and systematic efforts to bring together the HPC world and data. We don't know how that will go because EOSC is complicated and no one knows actually what EOSC is. But yeah, it's one of the things that we're not going to solve here, but it is a context that we think should be leveraged. You want
I
to?
got a question on the scope of the group there. Should it be concentrated on HPC or should also say remote compute environments be of interest?
Remote
computing, but not require forcibly performance computing.
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, you say not at the, it doesn't have to be large scale computing. Can it be, you know, in a continuum?
No, I didn't think I was. Well, whatever topic you feel can be connected, and if you think there's a relevant point that should be discussed there, it's very welcome. So
I would say it's trying to merge the computational side with the data centric approach, and yeah, I would think it doesn't matter if you're doing it at scale or not. It's the two parts of the brain that need to come together, at least for me. So I would welcome it. If you can hear me, if I could make another comment.
Yes.
So
yes.
one thing I was thinking on is we have the RDA code data research. Sorry, I should know this. This should roll off the tongue, but the research data science summer schools. Well, it's just data science summer schools, but it's really research data science. I'm wondering if there's some components in that curriculum that could be added to, at least at SDSC, every summer. They do these summer institutes, which is come and learn how to use the supercomputer.
Yep.
I wonder if we could find a way to partner with supercomputing centers to put some of that into their curriculum for students, and maybe thereby influence some of the people who are, you know, putting on some of these things and commingling the two ideas. Maybe we influence the next generation rather than trying to change what is already kind of entrenched.
Well, the co-data summer schools can have a sort of an HPC component to them, and I know that in Europe there's something called the Praise Summer Schools, which are HPC focused, but again there could be a data component to that, and CSC is very much involved in it. And I think also that we should be looking also at very specific, not very specific, but disciplinary approaches, because there you might have some of those people that actually have a footing in both. I mean, there are, I know that life sciences was mentioned, bioinformatics, but earth sciences is also another domain that is where it's becoming more and more computing intensive. And well, we have other examples that can be addressed. This is why, to some extent, EOSC Future was looking at connecting the science clusters. There are 5 science clusters that are focusing on data issues, and which would benefit from an HPC component. So the idea was to open up the access for them and help connect the two environments. And I think we have, so there's a life sciences science cluster, there's earth sciences, why don't I know the other ones? So it's high energy physics, or physics in
astronomy.
Yes, astronomy. Yeah. Thank you very much for for that. Actually, I think the escape one is, isn't it? The escape is astronomy. Yes, then there's PANOSC. So I mean, the point is that also a disciplinary approach can be maybe beneficial to try to maybe have some use cases, some interesting use cases, and try to understand which disciplines are maybe have fine-tuned some of the things, and what would be the some of the lessons to be learned from one or the other. I mean, we would usually, if there's if there's interest, we can think about trying to put together this application then, Christine, and based on that maybe we can move forward to have a concept for the group on what would be the issues that can be addressed, and maybe reach out to understand what would be the participation. I mean, I know that most of the yes, is there.
Sorry, Leslie.
So you need to stand in front of it too. If you're having trouble hearing.
I think you can hear me very well. No, I mean, I'm hoping.
Yeah, I think it's more like questions from the audience are can be quite hard to hear depending on how far people away from the microphone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we stand.
So you would have to come and replace me if you have anything to add to that, or I can try to remove the microphone and maybe pass it on if there are any points
Well,
to.
leave it there.
Oh no, because it goes through the Okay. She was looking at me. I'm ruining the setup. Yeah. Okay. So so we were planning out the next steps. So I'm happy to follow up on both the application as well as maybe trying to gear up this exercise, for lack of a better word. And we'll try to maybe take it from there. We do have a little bit more time, so if there's anyone else who would like to raise any points, you're more than welcome to. If not, we'll try to clean up a little bit these minutes, make them structure them in a way that that they can be maybe used then for the next things to be done. Thank you, Hilary, for help doing that. Okay, Christine, yeah, you're mentioning the summer schools. Okay, then. So if there's nothing else, I mean, it's a little bit soon, but we'll let you grab a cup of coffee before your next session, and I say we can close it here. Anyone else on connecting remotely, if you have anything to add? If not,
I'm just trying to
yes.
type it in. This was a really good session. I think it's a good session, and I think you're onto something. And Christine, I know you didn't have any slides, but you were making some real good points that I've been battling with for the last 3 or 4 years, and realizing, yes, with HPC, I was always amazed. Like, I saw how it started in climate, but then I was amazed at, in actual fact, how small volume their data sets were. And part of the reason why I don't think the geophysicists got onto it was, in actual fact, they're dealing with really big data sets that they continuously, what we call bonsai them, from terabytes down to gigabyte files. And it's been so entrenched in their psyche for so long that it's hard to get them to break it out. And often when I see analysis ready data, I do go berserk, because the producer of the data is bonsaiing it, or in a form so they can get it out over their infrastructure, or else preparing it to algorithms that they think the lowest common denominator of what they think their users want. And it's how we break it out and get people to have access to these rawer forms of data to actually start putting their algorithms on at the earliest stages. And I think that's not heresy, that's innovation. But at the same time, I know these data producers, particularly in government agencies, have to get their data out. The problem that the gap between what you can access on Amazon or your local server to the HPC is now so great that people have forgotten what the potential of HPC is. Anyway, that's just a thought, but thanks. This has been a great session.
talk to each other about this now, because these are things that, that I just think, oh, I'll just keep these kind of critical, grumpy thoughts to myself, but it's actually pretty fun now that I'm clearing the cobwebs.
Share them.
Now I'm having some more constructive ideas as we get into this. So I really enjoyed this. Thank you again for suggesting this to me.
Thank you. Okay. Well, Leslie, hopefully by the next plenary, we'll have something more consistent and like a better agenda. Because I know that we've highlighted a lot of problems and they're quite diverse, and we need to think of a good way and a systematic way to approach them, prioritize and approach them, because I don't think that we're going to solve them, but at least raising the right questions, I think is very helpful. So
I'm sorry,
yes.
Timur, they're not, sorry, they're not problems. They are challenges.
Yes, very good. Good. I'll take that. Okay. So thank you everyone also for joining remotely, and yeah, co-opportunities. Okay. Very nice. You're very nice. I might use that.
But please tell, because I'm not going to interrupt things, you can't repeat it. So you have to make a group out.
Oh, yes. I was told that I can't. Yeah, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to repeat it. So next time there will be progress.
Yeah, I said, Leslie, that, you know, I have to push Timea because we have rules, unfortunately, in RDA, and BoFs can't be repeated more than well, no, you can do twice perhaps, but no, we've heard about this for a long time. So I really would like to see, you know, and if we can help in the Secretariat with our masses of staff that we have, no, but we'd be very happy to, because I think there's an opportunity here that should be taken up. But so at the next RDA plenary, which you'll hear about on Thursday, where and when that's going to be, we'll have an interest group. Yeah.
Yes. Well, hopefully. That would be the plan. So yeah, I think as Christine said was
we have to do it. I think it's just, we need it.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, there is a need for an IG. Okay, so the decision taken. Okay, thank you very much then, and I'll see everyone, well, in the other sessions and remotely, and I'll follow up on this for both the session and the potential setup of the group, not the potential, and the setup of the potential group, potential interest group. Okay, thank you very much then, and well, have a good rest of the day, and a beginning of the day for some, I would assume. Yeah. Trying to do my best to keep track of the verses. So I have my watch with my home time, and then everything else with the local time, because I'm trying to be aware of as much as possible. Okay. Okay. So bye. We're gonna close this here.
Thanks a lot. Goodbye.
Thank you a lot.